Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chameleon's Women in Product series. Today, we're joined by Yuna, and we're going to be talking about growth through the always be learning mentality. So, hello, Yuna, welcome.
Hi, Kirsty. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so excited to talk to you about this today. Could you kick off by giving a little intro about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Yuna. I'm currently serving as a product designer at a company based in New York City, Braze. Prior to that, I was a product designer at Apple, and I had a small agency for designing and developing web to mobile services for a series of number of Series A to seed startups based in the Bay Area before moving over to the East Coast.
Lovely. Thank you for that. So, the topic of always be learning mentality, why is that so important to you, Yuna?
Yeah, I think so. This is something that I hold really dear to my heart. Like when I this like I think this I guess mentality helps me, kind of grounds me to think how I think and how I work on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's basically I was first inspired by listening to people talk, successful people talk, and then there's always one thing in common, and that's always humility. And then when I notice those people, they're always learning and wanting to kind of understand things that are outside of their expertise. And I think that over the years I've always been having that mentality for all the projects or any coming into work on a day-to-day basis, just to think about okay, what am I going to learn today? And then that excites me, as well as it helps me really empathize with people that I work with. And so and having that knowledge helps me really understand the products or the way they work. For example, I might be working on a project and I want to learn about how the data is structured or being saved in the background. So I'll ping my engineers and I ask a bunch of questions, and that really helps me provide my solutions and designs effectively. And I think it also helps people designers and product people to have a seat at the table. And I think it's especially really important for women who are more traditionally kind of maybe shy to speak out in a room full of men, for example. And that was my case at the beginning of my career. So and this mentality really helped me grow, and knowing and acquiring that different knowledge from people that have different expertise outside of my domain, and using that and understanding that and applying my expertise in the most efficiently possible.
Yeah, definitely. It's super interesting. And it's not something that you can just turn on and be like, yep, always learning. And it doesn't really have an end date on it either.
Yeah.
So hard to think about how you can actually adopt this mentality,
Mm-hmm.
put it into practice. But do you have any tips or steps that women in product especially can take to do so?
Yeah, I think I think the base is having that hunger and the drive for wanting to learn other things. But in order for you to do that, I think you really need to be interested in that topic or the things that you're in. So that in my case, I love what I do, and I also love to learn about things that are adjacent to what I do. So in design, I want to learn about product strategy. I want to learn about engineering. I want to learn about how the products are actually built behind the hood and how they think about technical design and stuff like that. So having choose main topics that you really are interested in and passionate about, and then the more it's closer to your professional domain, the better. But it doesn't always have to be. You can practice this mentality outside of your professional life. You can have that I want to learn about how to I don't know, train a dog, and then you read a bunch of books about it, watch YouTube videos. So just really hone in the thing that you're really interested in, and then over time, like you get to kind of like be expert at like learning, and and that's a really good skill to have, and where to gather your sources and who to talk to. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting that you're talking about different things that you can learn, whether it's like training a dog or I don't know, cooking a new dish, whatever it might be. There's an app that I started using called Blinkist, where you have those like 15
Right.
snippets where you can go in and
Hmm.
it's like you get the too long didn't read of a book, but you learn
Yeah.
something that you knew at the end of it, and you could be like, oh, maybe I will go and learn more about that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's like before, like a sampling a book, right? And then they're like, oh, this seems really interesting. I want to get more into that. And yeah, it's a really good way to like discover.
Yeah, definitely. So learning and development, as women, how can we support each other to continuously learn and continuously grow?
Yeah, I think like places like this, you know, like you have this women in product chat during International Women Days. But outside of that, like having people kind of gather and come in, especially like around different cultures, I think would be really, really impactful. Like I'm, for example, like I've had experiences working in overseas, and then the culture is so different. The way we think about like the role a woman plays both domestically and then also outside of like in the professional life, and so like understanding like how other cultures work, how their mentalities are, and then also like learn from like, you know, the cultures that are like way more progressive than us, like some Scandinavian countries or Europe, like the some of the issues that we may be facing in like women at workplaces are a little bit different, and so to learn, and I think to have that sort of community or an opportunity to share, I think that's great.
Yeah, sure. There's one thing that's come up over and over again when we've been talking, and that's been like having a community within your company to be able to talk and to share.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like we have one at Chameleon actually. We have a little
Hmm.
women in Chameleon group where we can go, we can chat, we can rant, we can share, and it's a really nice area to grow really with each other.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of companies that's doing that, and not that, and I think that's such a great way to start. Yeah.
Yeah. Another topic that's actually come up quite a lot is mentorship too. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Brilliant. So going back to that theme of growth that we're talking about, what is growth, especially when we're talking about the always learning, always growing? What does growth mean to you,
Yeah, so I guess like a growth, I think for everyone is have different ideas, and then for me, like outside of these like tangible things, like you know, having promotions or switching a career to like a domain that you're more interested in, for example. Outside of that, like growth for me is like setting a goal for yourself, uh, and from going to like a from a year ago, like how much knowledge or learning, like learning that I've done, and how much knowledge did I acquire in that period of time. So for me, I don't really think about like uh, I don't really think about I want to get there, like I want to be able to do A, B, C, like very specifically, but it's like I want to learn as much as possible in a given time. I don't want to give myself the pressure because I don't want to make this a work. Like this learning and growing, I think this is something that you do over time, and, you know, take the time and space as much as you need, and that works for you. So like for example, like I when I first decided like wanted to learn coding, like I only knew how to code like maybe a tiny little animations in the UI, and then you know, I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna really focus on this and double down this year, or maybe the next 2 years, it doesn't matter how long it takes, I'm gonna learn. And then like 1 year later, I look back, I'm like, okay, wow, this, like I've acquired so much knowledge, like I can like code the whole app now. Like this is really exciting. I don't know how exactly I got there. There wasn't a proper plan or anything, but it just happened because I was just learning like whenever I could. And that's I think that kind of being relaxed and having that mentality to learn. And I think that keeps the pressure off that and off you. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I love that. Like the path to learning isn't like A, B, C. It's probably like A, K, Y, then B, C
Yeah.
when you get there.
Yeah, whatever works for you.
Absolutely. Now you talked about lots of like independent learning and growing yourself, learning more. Do you have any tips on where women in product can go to learn more about the world of product and the world of tech too?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in like like total connoisseur in the latest tech trends or news or anything like that, but I'm very specific of the things that I want to learn. And when I do have a few topics, I kind of like Google around and look at like a bunch of Medium posts. I also listen to some podcasts like Design Details FM is really great, and then also like Product School, and things like just following people like thought leaders and industry leaders and product leaders on Twitter, looking at what they share kind of passively. If you're super busy, I think that's really helpful. It's been helpful for me at least. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that Twitter. Yeah, you are learning when you're scrolling through the feed, then you discover an article, then you go into it, you read a little bit more.
Exactly.
It's an
Yeah.
enjoyable way of
And you can get so much in the weeds of things and you discover something that you've never heard of. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I don't even know how I got there.
Yeah, 2 hours later, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
come a long way.
Yeah.
Brilliant, well, thank you for the tips, expertise that you brought to the table. Like I've learned a lot and I feel very motivated to learn even more. So thank you. And before we go,
Definitely.
we do
Mhm.
have a little curveball question that we've been putting in, just a little fun
Okay.
one at the end. And that was,
Okay.
if you could choose only one thing, what's the most impactful thing that you've learned in your career and product?
Um, I would say building empathy. So I think like I kind of explained earlier a little bit about like, I don't mean to sound cheesy or anything, but when you build a product, it just really takes a village, right? Like you have, and then everyone has their like sort of best focus and expertise in mind, like product and design, thinking about customers' experience and business. And you have like engineers thinking about data scalability or technical design, and you have like PMM and thinking about like how to go to market, the strategy, how do we fit in, like what our story is going to be. um, and in all that, but at the end of the day, we're all thinking about the customers, like experience. Like we're thinking about customers. So we're here to serve the customers. And then so like having all that heads together is very important in decisions. And I've seen decisions that are like made by like one of these entities and it I think it adds more value when everyone collectively comes together, share their expertise and knowledge, and have that on the table and come to a decision. And I think that kind of decision that brings like the most value in a long term. And so, in order to get to that, like I've learned to empathize with other counterparts, like the people I work with, how they product think, how these people thinking about like data and the structure and how does this build, like knowing that, and also ties kind of back to that whole like learning mentality. I think that's really that having the mentality of learning and building that empathy is it's really the most important thing for me, at least. Yeah, that's worked.
Brilliant. Practice empathy. What a lovely lesson to take through work, indeed. Well, Yuna, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope we can chat again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you. Take care. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Kirsty. Bye.